Good afternoon, everyone, or evening. Thank you very much for coming in our studio. This time is my turn to talk. I don't do that very often, so if there's a little bit something here and there, excuse me, please. We're going to talk about wayfinding and where we are coming from and how we see it, and basically how we can contribute in a larger scale to a project of wayfinding. So this was our first project, actually. It's a long time ago. Actually, it's part of a series of gifts we do every year, our yearly New Year gift. So we were standing 20 years ago on the edge of Dragonback, taking this picture. So those who know us for a long time, they may have received this poster. The others, you have a view now. The interesting thing is that somebody saw us. They were running on the Dragonback, and they take an extra 2 miles to come and see what was going on. So something was working in what we were doing. But we had to wait much longer to get to real wayfinding. And that's what set our place within the Hong Kong scene when it comes to wayfinding. In, I think, 2004, we worked with the Architectural Services Department, Alice Young, on the police headquarters in Wan Chai. And funny enough, now we're working on the old police headquarters in Hollywood Road. So we helped the police to move, and now we're working on what used to be their buildings, and that's another project for another time. But, okay. So these are part of what we did. We somehow naturally, on almost all our projects, things extend a little bit. The users, the clients, the people we work with ask us to do a bit more than just wayfinding. It flows naturally. So in this case, we did a lot of feature wall. We helped with lobby design and so on, which we were very happy to help with. And when we developed the branding for the East Hotel for Swire Group, a newly created branch of Swire, it felt natural also to work on part of the wayfinding for the hotel. It came quite naturally. Sorry, again. So we did integrated wayfinding for the lifts. We also helped again on dressing some of the wall of the hotel, such as the feature wall behind the lobby. Another branding project that turned into an extremely, how can I say, encompassing wayfinding branding project. And this is for a client in Beijing. They have these big stores that used to be discount stores, and they moved them to branded stores, affordable branded goods. So they were doing this transition, so they rebranded with us. But being a kind of warehouse concept, so all the furniture, everything is kept to the bare minimum. They're all like stainless steel shelf. So the branding became the interior design through wayfinding, actually. All the information within the store are branded. So we were doing wayfinding and branding without coming from a wayfinding point of view. And we actually designed the interior of the store. And then we had the chance through the police headquarters to be on the list of the design studio consultant for wayfinding. So we started to do more and more hospitals. And that's a subject that we particularly cherish, because we learn with a series of consultants on how to evolve within that very specific field. And I will explain later on how we get into more detail on one of those projects and what's the difference that we can bring to such a project. We also help with the Civil Aviation Department. The ICAC, the wayfinding led to also doing the their exhibition. And people don't see the link, but somehow part of what we learned by doing the wayfinding was also applied into the character that we developed for the exhibition area. And in 2011-12, we started working on Science Park Phase 3. And that was interesting. We were supposed to do wayfinding and an exhibition, and we ended up collaborating with Simon Kwan on the inter-design of all the public space and integrating the wayfinding with it. So various ways of approaching a similar project and not entering necessarily from the wayfinding point of view. So while we were doing this, we were thinking, wayfinding is a missed opportunity. It is something that we miss for ourselves because we come and we get paid for a toilet sign when actually we end up doing much more than that and thinking about the broader picture. But we also think it's a missed opportunity in many projects for our clients or the people we work with, where instead of having a wayfinding that clash with everything or is not in sync, we could do better. So this reflection pushed us to do something about ourselves. So we decided to audit ourselves on that specific subject. And this audit helped us greatly because we went from a kind of unconscious way of developing projects in somehow by the nose starting to navigate in other areas that were very integrated with wayfinding or starting from other areas. We started to put this into words. We started to be able to communicate about this. We started to analyze what we do and what is the difference between just doing a wayfinding system and doing more. And building on that semantic, understanding what we were doing was key to various levels. It was key to talk to potential collaborators, potential clients, but also internally was very, very important because you have a new team member coming. It always takes time for them to understand. When they have to do this instinctively, it takes a greater time. By having rationalized that to words and practice, we can explain this faster. So it makes the integration of new collaborators, partners, and employees much more efficient. And they can then start thinking about the project in a different way at a much early stage. And it had another practical aspect to it. We also reviewed the core of wayfinding. And the core of wayfinding is not only is where you place information at key location so that people navigate. And people talk about the fountain and all that. So I will not bore you with that because that's been done in the past. I will try to explain how we see it differently. But this management of information is key. So what we developed our own software, which is a combination of software, that allow us to manage all this information that goes at all these key points in a very complex building and to be dynamically linked to the Excel sheets that then help costing, help verifications and all that. It reduced the time we worked on this tedious task, gave us more time for design, which we prefer, and strategy. It also reduced enormously the amount of mistakes that we do. We still do some because it's quite complex sometimes and we miss a room here and there, but it's much less than before. So we definitely pushed ourselves forward, and part of the talk today is also to continue on that whatever direction. So one of the key things two things that are very key to us. We don't want to compete with the architects. We don't want to compete with the interior designer. We want to understand where they're coming from because they're very often there before. They plan the whole thing. They have their own style. They have years, sometime, of thought behind it. So for us, it's key that the people that have worked before us, the architects very often, sometimes the interior designers, can explain where they're coming from. We're good at taking that and making it ours. We don't try to compete. We're not here to compete. We're here to work together and that's key. So we always take great care on looking at what's been done. So we don't want to make a statement. We're not here. We are here to help the team that works on a project as well as the client to get the greatest job that seem almost naturally be there. It feels that it should have been like that. That's it. We don't want to take credit because, oh, it's a bit here, it's a bit there. So that's key. But being also a branding agency, we look at the messages. So the architect does the hardware, and the end user is the software. They are the people that are going to use these buildings and these spaces. And they have their own view on that. And so we need to marry these two. So we need to understand what the space is for. Is it a commercial space? Is it a serious space? Is it whatever it is? And what this group of people that are going to use this building have in mind, so that we can really bridge between the architectural vision and the brand messages, or whatever communication, how the character of that. So, win between these. And to make it a little bit more figural, sorry. Okay. There's the body, there's the soul, and we see ourselves as the voice. So let's say you have a big bloke with a voice like that. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's just, so we need to be the right voice for the right body, saying the right thing. And this is where we come in. And that's where we put our effort. And that's why we are more expensive. Just say it, so it's done. We don't talk about that. You know when you come that we do great work, but we cost a little bit more than the others because we do more. You get your money, I tell you. So, I'm going to go through two projects. One that's been completed and it's open, and one that is in the process of being built, which normally both of them will be success. This one is already successful. The other one should be a success too. The first one is a shopping mall in the New Territories in Tulmoon. It's been a project for Link, which is a developer kind of that took over 50% of the wet market and the attached shopping malls in Hong Kong. And they're redeveloping them, revamping them, revitalizing them. So we work with them in that shopping mall called Hands. So we looked through much more material, but just to shorten a little bit the discussion, the concept behind the architecture and the interior design was fluidity. And these are a few images that were given to us at the beginning. We had talked with them, we looked at renderings and so on, tried to understand where they were coming from. Then the client has already started the branding exercise, so we were coming this time as a wayfinding designer. And that's what was given to us. There was a hand for the word hands, speech bubble, and actually HANDS stands for the acronym Have a Nice Day Shopping, sorry. So we had that given to us. We asked questions, why do you come up with that? Understand the whole lot and try to make something out of it. But the other thing that was very interesting is the building. It's actually two buildings mirrored diagonally with a road in between. So you have two buildings mirrored and a center building that's a kind of a podium that links those two buildings. So there is a main road here and then those two buildings. So that also helped us in further developing at a later stage the concept. So we had curves, hands. So fluidity came, that was expressed in this way. Hands, we kept the speech bubble because we thought this was a key element that was working pretty well, that was already developed, and we didn't see why changing it. It's approved. And we looked at this two-sided mirror effect that this building had. So we worked a little bit to integrate fluidity with the bubbles, so that was basically adapting what was given to us so that the two concepts can marry together and create a language that can be used in the future. And then we combined together, and that gave us a new language to work with, and also a new identity, or let's say a modified identity, an elaborated identity. So once we had that, people were quite happy with this. And then we were, what do we do with that? We need to develop further the graphic language and to make it relevant to wayfinding and relevant to place branding somehow, because we touched on the brand and we thought, why don't further our expertise, let's push it a little bit more and see how the wayfinding can also be integrated with the branding that we help them to refine and fine-tune. So we came up with a graphic language where we developed various symbols to explain various typology or various points that are within the site or necessary to find your way around and so on. Toilet, tram, bus, the food market is very well represented, like meat, vegetable, fish, and other goods that you will find in such shopping mall. And all linked through the same language, which is quite important to the rest of the project. Then we went back to what we've learned from the architect, and we worked closer with the client and also the leasing team to understand better the various type of activities that will take care in the different wing of these buildings. And that gave us a color scheme that also was matching the 5 letters that compose hands. So we started to have different color, but a warm color for this side of the road and a colder color for this side. And then we gave a letter to each one of the zones that facilitated and linked back again to branding and communication. And that set the tone. We had a visual language, and now we had a color-coded system. We also worked on some of the elements that are not part of the architecture that are necessary to find your way, such as directories that are self-standing, totems, and ceiling-mounted directional signs. Here, even if the system is not designed by us, it's a clear explanation that's on the podium level. You can go to the blue side, you can go to the warm side. Now, this is where we worked, the team worked very closely with the architect and the interior design. This is the entrance to the D and S zone, so it's the cold entrance. So we work with them on fine-tuning the design by adding the colors, but also how to bring the branding and integrate it properly so that the entrance look designed and not another neon sign that is just out of place. We did the same. Oh, sorry. That thing doesn't work. Yeah. We did the same for the other entrance, which is the warm. So the architect wanted to keep this kind of louver design, which is fine. So we helped them out on how to also brand it and integrate the branding and sign the entrance properly to the right side of the building. Now, I'm going to try to see. Now, the ceiling-mounted sign is executed. You can see on the wall the color have been taken also by the interior design to start signing the zone internally. So that was embraced as a collaborative project. Another example, interior example on how we played with the interior designer on finding your way by applying this on walls. Then, not to bore you with more interior design shot, this is the parking lot of the blue wing, the cold wing. So how that works in a very efficient manner and also in a very inexpensive execution. on the outside, they started to wonder because you don't always see the building from far, so they started to touch on the facade. And that's where most likely all the architects will start to be very scared when the graphic designers are starting to touch the facade. But the client was very clear. They wanted to bring life. Part of the whole concept of Hands is that it's a communal shopping mall. It's something they need to bring life into a mall. It needs to be lively. It has to represent the joy that this brings. There's food, there's everything. It's the marketplace too. So we started to work on the facade with the architect and started to brand the whole building as a place to gather, to go for your daily shopping and all that. So this is one side of the building, and then if it doesn't jump, another side. So we didn't come up with a feature of the facade. We worked with the client and the architect to add that branding and this color element. And that worked pretty well. I think this shopping mall is very successful. The client is very happy. And I think the people of Twin Moon are using it to a greater extent, a lot more. You remember the hand? We turn it into the fountain. We use it in 1 or 2 locations as a kind of meeting point, as something you can talk about, an object where you can gather or say. In this case, we designed a mini maze on the landscape part of the podium. And this picture is not staged. The children are there, and they were there because they wanted to have fun. And they happened to be there when the photographer was there. So it's greatly used, and it's working. So we're very good at taking what's there and trying to make it look forward and integrate it. Now this is a project that many people are looking at from various departments in Hong Kong. It's been it's the first pediatric hospital in Hong Kong, and we're very happy to be part of this, the team that's working on this hospital. We like to call it the Children's Hospital. It's a little bit easier to pronounce, and it's also more friendly. It is located in East Kowloon, in Kai Tak. So it's part of the redevelopment of Kai Tak. It's a great location. It's on the waterfront. It's composed of 2 buildings, linked by a bridge and also linked by a landscape area, especially in the center. One wing is more for medical research, laboratory is more the private part, and the big block is more for patient and care. As mentioned earlier, one of the nice things about a design and build project is that you are there at the beginning. The bad thing is that you're there for 5 years. So there's pro and con. We like to look at the pro aspects of this. And for us, being part of this, we decided to put our effort, especially on a children's hospital. There is not that many in the world that are specialized, and we want being selected as part of the team was us very important. And we embraced the process pretty well with energy. So the team is made out of interior designer, architects, landscape, art, and hospital planner. And we come as a wayfinding, and we have to deliver an experience that is seamlessly integrated with the rest. The interesting part with this project is that from day one, the team was sharing a common vision. And that was quite interesting because they were meeting where everyone was trying to say, what do we share that holds everybody together? And I'm going to get to that a bit later. I'm going to try. So, this is actually the architectural part. Simon Kwan was there earlier. They have to study the brief. They have to come up with a concept. But an hospital is a bit different than another building. It's highly there is a lot of rooms that have special functions that need to be in special places for special reasons. So we study what they did and ask many questions. Why is that room here? It doesn't make sense to us. Because something I don't like, but the mortuary is placed in a location which is a bit out of the way. And other rooms are more prominently placed because they're more joyful and they bring more hope to the visitors and the patients and so on. So we took the time to work with the team and understand this building, the architectural statement, but also how it works. But not in detail. We didn't went into the corridors yet. We wanted to understand the key, how it works, why it works that way, why these choices in how it works were taken. Then we looked at the users, and that is when it becomes a bit more tricky here, because you have the patient, and they go from infant, very young, up to teenager, 18 years old. So needs and way of perceiving the exchange between the communication, their communication is very different. An infant wants to be cared for, and he cries when he needs something. You don't know why, but you know he cries. An 18-year-old has other needs and other demands. I'm not a parent, but I've been told it's the way it works. And then you have visitors that come to visit their child and their relatives. And they're all a little bit, how can I say, there's emotional problem there because why is my child here and what do I do wrong and so on. Or why is it our family that has to go through that? Then there is the medical body, the people that help the patients, the doctor, the nurses, and all the other people that help within an hospital that are there. So it's a demographic that is quite complex. So we looked at that also very carefully. And I touched at it already, but the emotional part is something that you don't find when you go to pay your tax, or at least not in Hong Kong. Maybe in other countries it could be a little bit more tricky, but I think in Hong Kong you don't have problems in most of the institutional building. It's pretty efficient. But an hospital, you have to deal with emotions. You have to deal with all these various conditions that are intangible, and we needed to understand the combination, all those three things, and be one contributing team member on how that can be answered within the hospital space context. So we decided to dig a bit more into that because you can read books, but we decided to go straight to the end users. So we designed or draw and planned a questionnaire that was given to the hospital authority that then distributed to the various users and people that will be in the hospital. They were asked to fill it in and it was given back to us. That gave us a lot of really interesting insights of we will never have got just talking to a few doctors or having read a few books. We had really practical insight on what could happen or not happen and why. So that was an interesting exercise, and it helped the team to understand better what's happening in an hospital from people having lived and experienced such situation. Thinking it's not enough, we also had a few workshops with children psychologists to understand how those infants to teenagers react to such circumstances and such environment. And another thing that was quite helpful and definitely helped the team working on this project to develop the design that we are proposing. Of course, we went on benchmarking. There is a few really nice hospitals there, so the stake is very high. And we're trying to be amongst those. So we're pushing hard to get it, to be part of the contributing parts to a very good hospital for a pediatric hospital in Hong Kong. So So this is the theme that was decided with all the other consultants. This is the common theme, that they habited for life. We wanted to give hope to the people that go there and not be too medical, that's generic. But also what it does, it's helping us to find something that could be applied to the restricted area, the areas that are not public. So we have something that can still work for people that go there every day, regardless if they're sick. No, they're there to work. So we have an environment that works for everyone. And within that habitat of life, then we can create separate habitats. We can start to look at character that can yeah. Yeah. So, H.L. Children's Hospital, we wanted to create a family. We wanted characters to go and live in this habitat and start to be the communication point with the patient and visiting parents and relatives and so on. And that was very well received. So it's a family that inhabits a space, and each member of the family has a different role. Each member of this family is on a different floor. So it serves the same function. It's like the host to the people going to this floor, but each character, a monkey, is different than a flamingo. A flamingo is different in character and expression than a panda, and so on. So the team together, when I talk about the team, is our team and the team that works in the hospitals and so on, the other consultants. We worked on what each, no, sorry. Yeah. So what each one of those animals can be designated for. And I will show you a few examples, the monkey, so you have sometimes two departments on the floor, so this animal has to function for two kinds of situations or patient situations. So we had that covers all the services that are, all the care that are offered in the hospital. I'm going to take an example. So the monkey is on the floor where the patient comes to, it's called ear, nose, and throat, or the reverse way. And it's also where they do some rehabilitation, simple rehabilitations. So we wanted the monkey to be there so that the nurse or the doctor can say, well, we're going to talk, you have a problem with your nose, with your smell, and so here's the monkey. See, he's smelling a flower. If you are good enough and we can treat you, you may be able to smell a flower again. We just need to figure out what's happening and we can help you out. The monkey with the ball, the first thing that children have to do when they go on that floor is take a blood test. I'd like, Roberto, you like blood test? He hates it, I know it. He turned white just thinking about it. So the team say, well, why don't we play with a monkey on a ball? And that ball can jump on the floor and leads to the room where you do the blood testing. So the nurse can take the child and say, hey, look, he lost his ball. Let's follow the ball. Because, of course, it's going to be like that. I don't want to go to that room. I know I'm going to get my blood taken. And then there's the same ball in the room because they need to squeeze the ball so that the vein come out. So the nurse then can say, look, the ball is here. Please help me out, squeeze the ball. So there's a whole series of four. There's many more that have been done. And that the caring staff can use to diffuse tension, to help explaining what's happening there. And that's very important. So it's communication. It's not wayfinding anymore. Now let me see again. Yeah. Here's the flamingo. So this is where children that have broken legs or problem that motion problem, they go for physiotherapy and stuff like that. So the flamingo seems a bit clumsy, has long legs and all that. So look, if you do your exercise properly on the ball, you can maybe become a dancer or an acrobat later. So there's all, again, a series of positions the flamingo is always playing with that help, again, the staff to talk with the patient. And that is on every single floor like that. I will go a bit later on a special case where there's two different usage of the same animal. It's not very bright, it's much nicer printed. But each animal has also its own environment, and that environment also kind of reflects what's happening on the floor. For instance, the flamingo is always his foot in the water. The center there has a pool to help for exercise, so there was the water feature. The kangaroo is with the family, so he has a landscape, he can move around, and I don't remember the details of that one, I'm sorry. But the octopus, it's a nice story, and that came from the discussion with the doctors and the nurses and all that. It's for neurology, it's for where all these connections within the brain are a bit mysterious. So the doctor and the nurses, they have to explain these things is connected here. You know, you have problems connecting the dots, the things, the electricity doesn't pass through the channels. But you see, this, it works. So you can figure out a little bit how that can work, how the brain functions, and they can use metaphors within the landscape and the octopus or the jellyfish, explaining that things are wired in the brain and through the body. And your problem is that you have a little problem with your wiring. Let's look at it. Oh, we still do wayfinding, by the way. I was almost going to forget that part. Oh, yeah. So, just to show you that, yes, we sidetrack a lot, but that's what brings all the value. That's what we charge a little extra for. Sorry. But we also know how to bring people from one place to the other. In that case, the kangaroo not only helps diffusing tension, explaining things, is also the one that's going to lead you to your destination. This is a pretty dry recap of what you can find on the floor. And here are the family and the animal jumping out. And that is a puzzle that was part of the initial concept that maybe become a toy for the visiting guests. So maybe it could be in the shop downstairs that sells the drinks and various things that you want to bring to the patients there. There could be also the puzzle that you can play with. So the animal jump, and it gets out of the family, and it starts to lead the way around. This is what you see when you come out of the lift. It's a play/waiting area. Again, it's all work in progress, so it's going to evolve more, but it's pretty well developed already. Other views of other integration of wayfinding and communication devices. Oops, I think I jumped a slide, doesn't matter. And yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, here we're on the kangaroo floor, and the kangaroo has two sections there. The kangaroo, on the kangaroo floor, there is the natal care, there's the newborns. So the kangaroo, obviously it's easy. You care of the baby, it goes in the pouch and all that. But there's also the oncology problem, which is a little bit a problem to mix. So the team again thought about how can we do that? When you are a cancer patient, you tend to lose your hair. We all know that. So it's not fun, it's something that are scared of. But how can we bring that into making it a bit more acceptable for the children? Well, you can have a hat party, and because you don't have hair, you maybe become the Indian chief, or you become Merlin, and that will also bridge the things between the different children. We can have a hat party, and everyone takes a character, and let's have a play. So again, integrated. But we hope that all these ideas will even extend further. I touch on the puzzle gift, but we think we can even go on producing, or the hospital authority could produce those few animals in soft toys, so that these soft toys could be sold, or in extreme case maybe given to the child, and that soft toy could be found on the bed. So that's something. We could develop toy with the animals that explain the scanning process. Scanning a child is one of the most difficult and wasteful things you can imagine in a hospital. It costs a bomb to scan, déjà. It makes a noise. Children are scared. And there's many people trying to find solution to improve that so they don't waste time. One idea is to have a toy that they can use and say, if you're a good animal and you will resist the noise and all that, we can give you a gift, or make them understand what they're going through and why. Up to maybe storybooks or notebooks with color drawings and so on, so to keep them busy and make them maybe understand other concepts that are within the environment. So we're very keen on looking at extensions too. And that is an hospital room, but you have the kangaroo there with his little child, and I think it's quite good. Being very lazy at an early stage, we also did something, because we thought doing all this illustration is time consuming. So we decided to ask the younger generation to give us a little bit of a hand. So we had a workshop with them and tried to steal their ideas. Just
technical problem. Just put it.
well, just don't do the sound.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I know. So they definitely inspired us, but they were a bit too creative, so we had to tame down their creativity. Maybe because we are adults, we can't just go that far. So, almost at the end. Just to recap, there is a body. Oh, that thing really. Oh. There's the body that's given to us, worked by people, we understand it, we get engaged with it, very important. There's the soul, which is another very important part, and we think that the combination of these two, that's where we can add a lot of value to projects, and that's how we see all our projects. We want to add value. We don't want to just be there and do something. So when we talk about wayfinding, we have to start somewhere. And it's difficult to expand. And what we try to do is to be engaged at the early stage, at least in a conversation where we can prove and show that we can bring more in a very integrated way, where we don't need to scare the architect that we're going to do something that they will be ashamed of and not want to take picture because there is an ugly sign. We can be there with them and decide how to do it together so that it fits. And at the same time have a user that is happy on how the way functions and how it helps them to communicate other things than just where this room is or where that room is. So, wayfinding is just a word, but it's an opportunity that needs to be explored. Not only to be explored, but that need to be explored. So, next time you talk about wayfinding and things, think a bit more broadly. The same those children did, and we need to tame them down and do that project. So, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, can you put back the last slide? Sorry. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. And after that, we can have a drink on the terrace. All right. Drinks?